Yo, it's a Ranch Fairy. I'm kind of a disruptive force in the vertical bow world, and Killer Instinct recently sent me a SWAT X1. And I also happen to own a Labrador. I've been playing with this thing. I don't do reviews and stuff until I've shot something for a while. I've had this 4 months or so, and I had a computer failure, so I'm back in the saddle. If you're a crossbow hunter, I did a test with the SWAT X1. This would apply to any open rail crossbow, whatever, where I took the hyper bolts that Killer Instinct sent me, and I went 100, 150, 200, and 250 grain field point, shot them through Labrador, and then did a momentum study downrange at the target at 60 yards to see what the impact is of mass with something that goes really fast. You're probably not going to like me very much if you're a crossbow person, because I'm about to smoke your brain. However, you shouldn't hate on me, because here's this thing. Labrador does one thing: reads velocity as the projectile goes down range. It doesn't care about your opinion. It doesn't care what you think, and it sure as hell doesn't lie in favor of some agenda. So welcome to my channel if you've never been here before, because that's a great way to not get any more subscribers. The information should be useful. No, I promise you it will be. So I'm going to show the shooting of the crossbow, us recording the data on the Labrador, and then the second half will be the analysis of downrange, on-target momentum gains by adding mass to your bolt, despite some reduction in velocity. Stay freaking tuned. Hi, it's the Ranch Fairy. That's Charlie. Charlie's famous. Charlie's been on a couple of my videos and slayed some pigs and stuff. Today we have a crossbow. This is the Killer Instinct SWAT X1. And that's a Labrador. And we're going to be doing some Labrador testing. I've got a set of arrows. I think they're between 391 and 530 some odd grains. And we're going to run them through the Labrador and calculate the downrange momentum out to 60 yards. The pig is out there, and it's at 66. So you have to put the target past the maximum distance for the Labrador so it flies through the 60-yard distance. So we're going to do that. Hang on. Charlie's a really good shot. He's the best SWAT X1 shooter ever. Bye. All right, Big Charlie. 100 grain field point. Send it. Dead hold. Don't hold off. It's speed's right. Okay, you got it that time. That hit the phone. All right, that's what we got. 150 grain point. Send it. Ooh, 200 grain point. Right. Yeah. All right. I aim a little higher this time. Good shot. 339. All right, 250 grain field point. Hang on, Charlie, gotta arm it. All right, she's armed. Ew! Pretty good shot, Charlie. 327 and 305 at 60. Okay, so I'm back. I got my glasses on because I'm getting old and I can't see, and I have a laptop down here that I did all the data on, and I am not smart enough to remember all the slides that I've built just offhand. So if I glance down, it's because I'm looking at the data, but you're going to be seeing it on the screen, so I'll probably disappear. It'll come up in a screenshot. So most people's first question is, how fast are we going? Well, you kind of saw on the lab radar. Here's a screenshot of the data in a subset so you can look at it. And some of these slides, if you don't get the concept, just stop the video and sit there and look at them, or back it up and listen to what I'm saying. I've done this with vertical bows. It's pretty crazy information, and it's kind of mind-boggling until you really think about it. So there's the velocities at 20 and 60, and I'm doing the analysis out at 60 just because I did the first vertical bow study at 60, so I'm repeating that. The first thing that jumped off the page for me for the velocities was at 60 yards, a 50 grain increase from 391 grains to 441. The impact velocity at 60 was 1 foot per second difference, which is pretty interesting. There's probably some aerodynamic drag facts there. We're studying that, but that was pretty wild, that you just, by adding 50 grains, and you're going to see what 50 grains does for your momentum downrange at 60 yards in a second. But there was only a 1 foot per second difference at 60 between 391 grains and 441 grains. So that's like giving up nothing, but you're going to see the difference in the momentum. And I'll make the case for why momentum matters, mostly because it'll penetrate better. That's all that matters. And then some of you folks are going to notice, because you're nitpicking, that when you added another 50 grains, so 100 grains total, the velocity really dropped. However, I'll do the analysis on that and show you some of the math behind that. And once again, you'll see it in the momentum charts in a second. This slide is relatively busy. You're probably going to have to stop. What I did was I did an analysis of just adding 100 grains. So you get a stock bolt with a 100 grain point, and you go to a 200 grain point. The velocity lost for the 391 grain arrow across 60 yards was 16% of the feet per second. And when you go to 491 grains, you add 100 grains. The launch velocity slows down a bunch, absolutely, but you only lose 8% of your speed across from launch to 60. So this is an analysis of the launch velocity minus the impact velocity, and then how much speed did you lose at 60 yards. So for that case, the 391 grain projectile launched at 365 and hit at 326, 16% lost. And the 491 grain projectile, 100 grains heavier, launched at 339, but hits at 311. You did increase your mass 20%. And again, keep that in your head, because you're going to see that in the momentum chart. What a dramatic difference that makes. It doesn't slow down as much when it's heavier, and it weighs a lot more, 20% more. Doesn't sound like a lot until you start looking at momentum. So here's the raw chart. The top line, the blue line, is launch velocity right out of the bow, which is what 90% of people do. And it's a really poor place to analyze lethality and penetration capability or potential, because you're not shooting anything a foot from the muzzle. Vertical bow, guns, crossbows, you don't shoot stuff that close. You're shooting out 20, 30, 40, and I push it out to 60 because a lot of people like to stretch stuff out these days. That's fine. That's your choice. You're a human and an adult and a damn red-blooded American. You do whatever you want. Plus, thing's got a scope with a drop compensator in it. So it's not an impractical distance to shoot with a crossbow, especially. A lot of the vertical bow guys are doing it. I am not an advocate for that with the vertical bow, but they're doing it. Anyway, once again, the blue line on top is launch velocity at 365 for the 391 grain arrow. We've already kind of gone through those velocities. And then progressively, as we work up on the bottom row, you got 391, 441, 491, 541. That's a projectile mass. And I just put 50 grain gains in the point. That was pretty easy to do. So I wanted to see what maybe 50 grains would do, just bumping maybe from 100 to 150 grain field point, broadhead, etc. Again, the 391 grain projectiles launching at 365 with a momentum of 0.63 slugs. Just adding 50 grains and going up to 441 grains. The 60-yard impact velocity is 325 feet per second, but the momentum is 0.64 slugs. It is the same momentum, arguably higher, but just 0.01, so we'll go with that. It's the same momentum at 60 as the launch momentum of the lighter projectile. Again, you have a scope. You can make that adjustment. So that's pretty significant. 60-yard momentum is equivalent to the muzzle momentum of the lighter projectile. We saw this in the vertical bows as well. I ran it out and compared the lightest projectile to the heaviest one, just for the velocity, and you can see the momentum here. It continues to go up, right? And I've got a slide showing that. So the 60-yard impact velocity for the lightest projectile is 326 feet per second, and that projectile is 391 grains. When you run it up to 541 grains, it's a 250 grain field point. You are impacting the target at 301 feet per second at 60 yards, but a massive increase in momentum. And I calculated that for us. The boxes are showing you the momentum at 60 yards for each projectile, and it's a 27% increase in momentum at the target at 60 on meat, not at the muzzle. Launch it out there because you're hunting, and you're intending to acquire your animal. And it's a 27% momentum increase at 60, even though the velocity slowed down so much. So I'm not really surprised by this. We saw this in the vertical bow study I did. Here's a thumbnail of that whole playlist. I did KE, velocity, momentum, and a bunch of other stuff with the lab radar. So if you're a vertical bow person, or even if you're a crossbow person, that stuff's gonna trend. It's just going faster. That 20% increase in mass and, an 8% reduction in velocity that I talked about earlier is a thing. And that's why the momentum piece really comes into play here. The physics folks, there's a lot of arguing. Lord knows I've started some serious wars out there about this. It seems that only in archery and shooting sticks, so you're launching it with one of the arrow guns, which I have, you're shooting, a crossbow, or you're shooting a vertical bow. The bow hunting world wants to argue, and I don't know what we're trying to prove. When you talk to high-level engineers, well, any engineer, even people who don't do aerodynamics and stuff, just basic engineers who do random stuff that know about inertia, momentum, kinetic energy, and all that stuff. And you talk to science folks, and you talk to the bullet guys, and you talk to anyone who's studied mass and inertia. They just say, yeah, of course. Everyone knows this. However, in the flying stick world, again, whether that's a vertical bow, a stick bow, a crossbow, an arrow gun, we just decide that none of this really matters and have opinions not backed up by data. What happens to you is, and the disconnect with me and the Ashby Foundation and a lot of the people who are starting to grasp this heavier mass projectile on target thing, is a couple of things. Dr. Ed just told me this, Dr. Ed Ashby. We're shooting a stick that has lower energy than a .22 long rifle. We need to capture and use that energy that we have that's less than a .22 long rifle in the most efficient manner we can to penetrate animals. And mass and momentum increase the potential for your flying stick to go through the animal completely, break things if it hits them that are hard, and quite frankly, make your life a whole lot better if you're super lethal. So just let that rattle around in your head. As I said earlier, you may need to go back, listen to what I'm talking about, and then sit there and look at the charts and graphs. I didn't pick this stuff up real fast. This is my 6th or 7th year on YouTube. This has been a progression, growth, curiosity, and what if? What if? Why? Asking questions. Maybe I'm not doing the right thing, or maybe what I'm doing is not the most lethal thing I can possibly do. And through meeting a lot of engineers, some guys who are high-level people in aerodynamics, they've helped me grasp this idea that what I thought and what is reality as far as getting the flying stick to fly through the critters, that we have a lot of opinions, and then you get a lab radar and you look at the facts, you look at the momentum on target, and you just have to say, if I could get 27% more momentum at 60 yards, why would I not do that? If I could add 15% more momentum on target at 60 yards, why would I not do that? Because the goal of your flying stick is to fly through the animal, deliver the broadhead into as many organs as possible, and ideally pass through. And obviously hit on target, blah, blah, blah. If you're a crossbow shooter, I recommend you go to Dragon Deer Outdoors. Here's a screenshot of that YouTube channel. Matt's done a great job of working with multiple crossbows. I only have one. So he has open rails and a bunch of different versions and different kinds of crossbows. And he's done a ton of tuning and stuff, and I'm not going to replicate that. He's done the work. There's no reason for me to do it. Go to his channel and watch how he's tuning crossbows, knock tuning crossbows, getting fixed blade broadheads to fly. He's done an extensive amount of work in that area, and there's just nothing for me to add to it. So that's my chit chat about momentum and all that good stuff. If you would like to subscribe, please do. I have videos on, sharpening broadheads and all that stuff. I'm going to play with the crossbow some more. I'm going to put more crossbow content up because it's an interesting platform. It's super accurate, relatively easy to shoot. That one is real easy to shoot. So if you want a SWAT X1, it's been super accurate, and I don't know what I'm doing. And then the velocities are way up compared to a vertical bow, which is, my normal bailiwick. And it gives me an opportunity to shoot something going really fast, analyze data, and look at some of the points that come up. If only the vertical bows could go faster. Well, this thing naturally shoots at speeds we've never seen in the vertical bow world, and the math still is the same. You add mass, you add momentum, and you are going to be shooting a on-meat hammer. Hit the subscribe button if you want. If you don't, it's a free country. You can do what you want. Thanks for watching. See ya.